We have two lawyers tonight with contrasting positions to weigh in on this development. It also happens that they're both named Jesus. Attorney Jesus Falcis and Attorney Jesus or Jayvee Hinlo, who's also a PDP-Laban senatorial candidate. First of all, the recusal, let's go to the recusal of the SolGen. He says it's institutional, but I understand that DOJ Secretary Rebulla and even the spokesperson, Attorney Claire Castro, said it was personal. And the second question is, should he resign out of delicadeza? Let's start with Attorney Jesus Falcis.
Thank you for having me, ladies. So on the first question, it is both, no? We cannot be ignorant and naive to say that politics and the law are separate. So when you exercise a position in government, you carry your own values, you carry your own background. So if in his legal opinion, professional opinion, he thinks the Solicitor General should withdraw from the case, that cannot be divorced from his personal opinion as well, because what is personal to him affects his professional opinion. We have to note, of course, that SolGen Menardo Guevarra is a law firm partner of former Executive Secretary E.S. Medialdea. And of course, he was also an appointee of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Hindi natin maalis, mahirap na burahin yung ganong personal background of the Solicitor General, which can affect and influence his professional opinion. Now, of course, as to the second question, which I think we will discuss this more, no? In my opinion, he should resign. There's clear basis sa Supreme Court jurisprudence, sa ating mga decisions ng Supreme Court, that what the Solicitor General did in withdrawing is actually not justified. So the Supreme Court says the Solicitor General cannot refuse to represent the government. This is under Section 35 of the Revised Administrative Code. And in many cases, recently, in 2007 from Chief Justice Puno, Guevarra versus Quirino State College, ang clear doon, sobrang clear, sabi ng Supreme Court, the Solicitor General cannot withdraw or refuse from representing the government except with a just and valid reason. Ang sabi ng Supreme Court, hindi just and valid reason yung difference in legal opinion. And the basis that Menardo Guevarra cited was that he has a difference in legal opinion, that the ICC has no jurisdiction. So that is insufficient. That is not a valid reason, according to the Supreme Court, for the Solicitor General to withdraw or refuse his appearance. So with all due respect to the Solicitor General, I think he should resign because he is not exercising his mandate under the law.
Okay, overtime na kayo ha. Let's go to Attorney Jayvee for your rebuttal. Next parang debate. But you do hold a contrary opinion, right?
Yeah, of course. Before Attorney Menardo Guevarra is to be considered as the Solicitor General of the Philippines, he is first a lawyer who is bound by the Code of Professional Responsibility and Accountability. Under Section 1 of Canon 2 of a lawyer, it is stated that a lawyer shall not engage in unlawful, dishonest, immoral, or deceitful conduct. Being said, it has been the constant position of the Philippine government that the ICC has no jurisdiction over the issue of happening in the Philippines, considering that the government has already withdrawn. It has been the consistent position of the Philippine government. And if it is so, there is no justification to use as basis any agreement with Interpol, because the root or the basis of the Interpol's request is no longer recognized by the Philippine government. Whatever they do, it is now up to the conscience of the SolGen whether the said act of certain Philippine officials is lawful, is honest, is moral, or not deceitful. If based on the conscience of the SolGen, the act of those government officials do not represent the official position of the Philippine government that the ICC no longer has jurisdiction over these cases of EJK, then
So
the
is he
decision
right?
of SolGen Guevarra is
Attorney Jayvee, if I may interrupt, is he right in leaving his fate up to Malacanang?
It is up. That is his answer. We cannot speculate on what is running now in the minds of SolGen Guevarra. Because if we base it on blind loyalty to the officials now sitting in Malacanang, he is foremost a lawyer, bound by legal ethics, as directed by the Supreme Court. When he took his oath of office as a lawyer, he is bound to what is legal, honest, moral, and his action should not be deceitful.
Shall we let Attorney Falcis weigh in, or would you like
Actually,
to?
I wanted to exactly ask, no, Attorney Jess Falcis, what your thoughts are on the SolGen saying, you know, the ball is now in Malacanang's court. I serve at the pleasure of the President. Of course, that doesn't stop him from resigning if he do so desires. But what do you think about that move?
Well, first of all, no, I have to distinguish that the Solicitor General is not an ordinary lawyer. The Solicitor General is the lawyer of the government. So, in terms of being a private lawyer, yung panyero ko, ang kinuquote niya na may personal and private relationship sa CPRA, ang ating Solicitor General as a lawyer, that does not apply to him anymore because the Supreme Court has said, unlike a practicing private lawyer who can decline employment, it has been ruled by the Supreme Court. These are words I'm reading verbatim, that the Solicitor General cannot refuse to perform his duty kasi Section 35 says the Solicitor General shall represent the government of the Philippines. So, in relation with this, that is the law right now. And so, if that is the law right now and Solicitor General Menardo Guevarra knows this, he has to offer a just and valid reason to decline representing the government, even if he has a different legal opinion than the government right now or the
He's
administration
abdicating
right now.
from
So
his task.
he should
Parang
resign. If he doesn't resign, mga ladies, I think he should be fired by the president because there's already incongruence with the principal, the client, who is the president and the government, and the lawyer, which is the Solicitor General. So dapat ma-replace na yung Solicitor General if he doesn't represent or is not willing to represent the government.
All right. Well, Attorney Falcis and Attorney Hinlo, I mean, what are the implications of this manifestation by the SolGen, and how do you think it will affect the case? Will it just boost and validate the arguments of the Duterte side and weaken the case of the respondents, in this case, the administration? What do you think of that? Attorney Hinlo?
Yeah, this will validate the official position of the Philippine government that the ICC no longer has jurisdiction over the case of former President Duterte. And this will also validate the position presented by the family of former President Duterte that certain officials of the government made a mistake, committed those mistakes, and the SolGen, based on his personal conscience, he has to adjudge it whether the action is lawful, honest, moral, or not deceitful. I disagree with the position of Attorney Falcis because any order to the SolGen by officials of the Philippine government which are illegal, the SolGen can say no because his loyalty should be with the Republic and not to a person. Now, it depends now. The SolGen is now giving it to the decision of the President. If the President has lost his trust, Section 5 of Canon 1 states that as a lawyer, the lawyer's duty and discretion in procedure, a lawyer shall not allow the client to dictate or determine the procedure in handling the case. For a long time, we've heard President Marcos claim that the ICC has no jurisdiction over the cases filed against former President Duterte. Yet, they allowed the Interpol to get former President Duterte based on a request from a foreign court that the Philippine government alleges and has formally said has no jurisdiction over former President Duterte. You cannot use as basis the agreement of with the Interpol when the source of the power or request made by the Interpol comes from a court no longer recognized by the Philippine government.
Can we have
In this
Attorney...
instance, SolGen Guevarra
Can we have Attorney
correctly
Falcis
decided.
respond to what you said, Attorney Jayvee?
Thank you for that. Of course, Panyero has his opinion, no? But legally, the Supreme Court has already rebutted him, no? First of all, the Solicitor General's withdrawal or refusal has absolutely no connection with the merits of the case. So even if the SolGen says ICC has no jurisdiction, that's why he wants to withdraw, it doesn't affect whether or not ICC actually has jurisdiction because that is his own opinion and hindi naman niya pinasok yun sa records with the Supreme Court because he just manifested that he disagrees with the opinion of the government right now. But second of all, and this is more important, no, because a lot of BDS lawyers are spouting this lie na walang jurisdiction ng ICC. They have to rebut the Supreme Court first because Cayetano versus Pangilinan, a case decided by the Supreme Court, explicitly states that the ICC has residual jurisdiction. May jurisdiction ng ICC for all of the crimes committed before we withdrew. And ang kaso ni Duterte ngayon sa Dahig ay for cases that were covered by 2011 to 2019 when we were still a signatory and party to the Rome Statute. So it's purely baloney to state that the ICC has no jurisdiction. It has. The Supreme Court itself validated that, and with the concept of residual jurisdiction in RA 9851, there is no basis legally to state that the ICC has no jurisdiction.
However, we understand both sides of the argument, and this continues to be hotly debated, and you know, it's so hard to give the right answer because perhaps, you know, it will always be divided by
the SC
opinion.
has ruled, the ICC also has
yes.
decided, so
the thing
those are facts.
Yeah, those are facts. So I guess to further explain and simplify this, so obviously I think all agree, right, that all the crimes until March 2019, they are covered, those incidents that happened between them. The arrest, though, happened in 2025 when we are no longer a member. So some people might be thinking, you know, the rules governing the arrest might have to consider na wala na tayo sa ICC.
O sige. So let's have them comment on the arrest. Whether it's, but because it was an Interpol, it was
an
Interpol that
thing. But
executed
is it arguable?
Okay.
Legally.
Maybe Attorney Jayvee first before Jess.
Legally, the family of President Duterte, former President Duterte, and his lawyers wanted to argue this before the Supreme Court. However, the Philippine government and the officials involved did not give him that benefit, did not give him the chance to face the Supreme Court as a citizen, as a former president, to argue his case. The Philippine government, under the Marcos regime, has decided to surrender its former president to a foreign court, which court the Marcos regime itself has said already is not recognized. Now,
All right, if I may get both of you...
If they were allowed, if former President Duterte was allowed to argue in the Supreme Court and his position was approved by the Supreme Court, he should face trial here in the Philippines.
Okay.
If not,
if
we
I
have
may
no
cut
choice
you
but
off,
to agree.
Attorney, because the Department of Justice has already answered, given its reply to the Supreme Court, and in its answer, it mentioned that the Supreme Court has no purview on a political, if I may paraphrase, this is a political decision by the President, and he has primordial authority over foreign affairs. And so this was the position of the DOJ. Have you both seen the reply of the DOJ? All right, Attorney Jayvee, parang sinagot nyo na yun eh, because you're saying the right was denied to the former president, but the DOJ says this is a political matter.
But you must remember, ma'am, that the principal counsel in cases under litigation before the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court is the Solicitor General. Now, here comes the Solicitor General disagreeing with that. That's why he recused himself. His conscience probably could not agree with it. That's why we have the very question now addressed to us. Because before he becomes a Solicitor General, before he is recognized as such, he is a lawyer who took his oath of office before the Supreme Court. And that is what his conscience tells him. Now, whether he should stay as SolGen or not, he is, as what the news has stated, he is leaving it to President BBM.
Okay, Jess? May you comment also on the...
conscience of SolGen Menardo Guevarra is entirely irrelevant. If lawyer, he should know the Supreme Court's jurisprudence mandating the SolGen to defend the government, whatever his personal opinion is, except when he has a just and valid reason. And again, a difference in legal opinion in numerous, countless Supreme Court cases has been invalidated by the Supreme Court. The difference in legal opinion is not a proper basis for withdrawal.
Okay.
But going back to the question of arrest, ladies,
Yes. Jess, have you
Yeah.
seen the answer of the DOJ on behalf of the government? Because nga,
Yes.
ayaw na ni SolGen. Meron doon na the court, I mean, being the executive, it has the power to act.
Yes. So that's what I was going to say, no? Ang legal basis kasi na sinasabi dyan ng DOJ is an interplay or interconnection of different legal bases. The foremost basis is the doctrine that the chief executive or president is the chief architect of foreign policy. As chief architect of foreign policy, that is an essential, quintessential political matter or power that is left to the president, and generally the Supreme Court does not meddle because he is the one that gets to know the foreign relations, the intelligence that is used as basis to decide questions on matters of foreign policy. So in relation with the case of former President Rodrigo Duterte, the surrender and cooperation with an international court is part and parcel quintessentially of the President or Chief Executive's power as Chief Architect of foreign policy. But may I add, so aside sa sinabi ng DOJ na yan, nasabi din ng DOJ po noon na meron tayong sariling batas, meron tayong domestic law or Republic Act legally giving the president a legal basis to surrender the president to the ICC. And this has not been talked much about, no, but in the legal circles sa mga academics, kalat na ito. But for the general public, I guess they don't know this. In RA 9851, Republic Act 9851, which is the law defining and penalizing crimes against humanity, we have our own domestic law. We're not just relying on the Rome Statute here. We're not talking of treaties. We are talking of a law passed by the Senate, forwarded and advocated by Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago. Itong law na to, celebrated by Atty. Harry Roque, nung human rights lawyer pa siya noon. Dito sa batas, R9851, it says here that the President or the relevant authorities have the discretion or power to surrender a person if in the interest of justice, it deems that it does not need to investigate or prosecute the person on its own. Meaning, yung Pilipinas, ayaw na niyang i-investigate or i-prosecute yung tao, meron ng pending investigation or prosecution in another court, which is an international court, and the Philippine government may surrender or extradite. But this is not extradition. That is the fake news by the DDS lawyers, no? This is not a case of extradition, it's a case of surrender, which is a totally new concept. Kaya kailangan yung mga DDS lawyers mag-aral. They have to keep up with the mandatory continuing learning education kasi baka hindi nila alam
pagsalitain na natin si Atty. Jayvee.
noon.
Okay, pinag-aaral daw kayo, sir.
With due respect to my compañero, Attorney Falcis, whatever he says right now the principal counsel of the Republic of the Philippines in the person of the Solicitor General, Atty. Menardo Guevarra, does not approve his opinion. Period.
All right. Well, thank
Period.
you so much. Would you add?
Tinuldukan na ni Attorney
Okay
Jayvee.
na.
Okay na.
Attorney Jesus Falcis and Attorney Jesus, Jayvee Hinlo, maraming salamat sa inyong oras.